I'm Richard Pyatt. Welcome to another of our Discover Kalamazoo historic walking tours. Today, we're in the center of it all, Bronson Park, with Lynn Houghton, author, historian, and curator of the Regional History Collections at Western Michigan University. So, Lynn, if we were to say we're at the entrance of Bronson Park, where would that be?
Well, the entrance that we're going to be focusing on is the one that is on the northeast side of the park. Of course, there's a lot of entrances, but let's start here and talk a little bit about the origin, which happened in 1831 when our founder, Titus Bronson, and his brother in law, Stephen Richardson, gave 4 squares of land in the center of the town to convince Michigan to make Kalamazoo, or Bronson as we were known at that time, the village seat. They succeeded. And over 20 years later, 2 of those squares, one that had a school and another one had a jail, combined to make the park, which later the name was changed to bear Titus Bronson's name.
Hmm.
Now, over the years, there have been a lot of monuments and memorials that were scattered throughout the park. There was a decision made when they were renovating the park to combine those in one place. So if you look on the east side of the park, you can walk along the sidewalk and look at all those different stones that commemorate a lot of different things, units that fought during the Civil War, just to mention a few.
All right. And cool things to see as well. You really wouldn't have a new center of town without some government buildings, I suppose.
This is true. One of these squares that they gave was for a courthouse. And so the courthouse, which is to the north of Bronson Park, that's the 3rd courthouse on that site. It was built in 1937, and it's an example of Art Deco, but it's not the only place where there's a government building. If you look to the south, on the other side, you get to see Kalamazoo City Hall, which was built in 1931, also an Art Deco style building. And you can see decoration all over it, very geometric shaped, very beautiful. What I'd also like to point out is across the street from City Hall, we're back in the park. You'll see a sculpture that's called Children at Play, which actually was located originally to the west of the park, but was moved here a few years ago, done by a local artist named Kirk Newman. And it's to reflect all the different children that lived in Kalamazoo during the 1970s, specifically 1976. And so you'll see all different ages and all different races. And as they sit there, the figure, if you look at the figure, the future is meeting them. And that's what that sculpture was all about.
Very nice. I suppose as we talk about government buildings near the center of a new town, churches would be near the center of a new town too, wouldn't they?
This is true. And next to Courthouse Square, you had Church Square. Now there's only 2 churches left on Church Square. The oldest one is the White Building, which is the First Baptist Church, completed in 1855. Now that is currently right now, that is owned by an organization that's providing space for nonprofit and advocacy groups. The other church on Church Square is First Congregational, completed in 1928. There's some other churches that surround the park. First Methodist, that was completed in 1929, which is on the west side of the park. And then on the south side of the park, just across the street from City Hall, is First Presbyterian, completed in 1930. All of the churches are wonderful examples of Gothic revival. Now, back into the park, across from First Presbyterian, you see a mound, which is a Native American mound that's estimated to be about 1,000 years old.
Hmm.
Ground penetrating radar was used to find out more information about it and its age. As I said, it was about 1,000 years old. What they did find is that it was used for ceremonial purposes, and the interpretation and the signage and the landscaping all reflect its history.
That's incredible. Boy, as you might expect too, the center of town would have been the place where events took place, attractions might have been staged, speeches might have been delivered. This is certainly the case here too, right?
And even baseball was played in the park back in the 1850s. Yes, it was a center for many events, 4th of July celebrations, and yes, political rallies. And by far the most famous one happened on August 27th, 1856, when a number of speakers were there, including a man from Illinois named Abraham Lincoln. And this is noted to be the only time that He, of course, came to Kalamazoo and came to the state of Michigan. There's a state historical marker on the west side of the park that talks about that visit and gives a little more detail. Now, along with the Rotary Stage, which was built in 2000 and was a project of the Downtown Rotary, there's also a lot of buildings around there that are also places where concerts and other events are held. Directly across the street from the park, on the corner of South and South Park Street, is the Civic Auditorium. This is a very interesting building, construction in 1931, and it was designed by the architect Amar Embry to look like a circus tent. So if you
Hmm.
look at it very closely, you can see what he was trying to get across. Not only is that home for the Kalamazoo Civic Theater, but it also is a wonderful site for the performances for the biannual Irving S. Gilmore Piano Festival.
All right. And as well, one building of note is the Ladies Library Association, isn't it?
It is the Ladies Library Association, which is a little bit to the south on South Park Street, has been there since 1879. The ladies started their organization back in the 1850s. It's one of the oldest in Michigan. And they raised their money, saved what they had to build their own building. There's still a very active Ladies Library Association who takes such wonderful care of their building, which was one of the first in Kalamazoo to be on the National Register.
All right. And quickly, we can say another building of note that is adjacent to the park is the KIA, right?
Correct. That's on the southwest corner across the street. It was designed by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill in 1961. And you'll also see a Chihuly sculpture as you walk in. Just a wonderful source for exhibits and classes and other events that they have there. And the KIA, I might like to add, is also the sponsor of the very popular art fair that happens in June and is sort of like the beginning of summer in Kalamazoo.
In the center of it all, that's where we've been. I'm Richard Pyatt. Be sure and check out our other Discover Kalamazoo Historic Walking Tour episodes and lots more at discoverkalamazoo.com. Also, watch there for details on Lynn's historic on-site in-person walks as well. Thank you, Lynn Houghton.
Thank you very much, Richard.